look at a part of the planet we have never seen before. In January, a giant piece of ice broke off from an Antarctic ice shelf, revealing an ecosystem on the seafloor that has never been accessible to humans. What scientists found was both stunning and surprising, proving that life exists under astonishing conditions.
For centuries, ocean science has been constrained by a harsh assumption. Life on the deep seafloor must depend on sunlight. But when a colossal iceberg, comparable in size to the city of Chicago, broke away from Antarctica, that assumption collapsed. For the first time, scientists were confronted with a vast ecosystem thriving in perpetual darkness. Even with the thick ice completely blocking any input from above, this hidden biosphere continues to flourish, sustained by a force operating from below. A massive geological engine, silently driving life through the frozen continents in a world that no longer depends on the sun. The 1,300-meter mark and the collapse of prejudice. The story begins on the 13th of January, 2025. A colossal fracture suddenly appeared at the southern tip of the George VI ice shelf. The ice formation known as A84 extended 19 miles in length and 11 miles in width. Its surface area measured roughly 510 square kilometers, equivalent in size to the city of Chicago. This massive block detached and began drifting into the open ocean. Over the following weeks, satellites operated by the Earth Observing System of NASA kept constant watch on the path of this enormous ice mass. Ocean currents along the coast carried it steadily onward. Yet the true significance lay not in where it was heading, but in the vast area it had left exposed. The departing iceberg had inadvertently revealed a section of seafloor measuring 209 square miles. This region had remained hidden from human eyes, sealed beneath eternal ice for countless ages. The research vessel RV Falkor 2, operated by the Schmidt Ocean Institute, was already working in the vicinity of the Bellingshausen Sea. The team recognized the rare opportunity and acted swiftly. Only 12 days after the ice broke away, they lowered the remotely operated vehicle named Sebastian into the pitch-black waters. As the robot descended through 1,300 meters of water, it crossed into a realm defined by conditions that normally extinguish all life. Prior to the departure of A84, this area had lain beneath an unbroken wall of ice, nearly 150 meters thick, comparable to a building rising 40 stories high. That barrier created total darkness, entirely preventing any process of photosynthesis. Oceanographers have long maintained a clear principle. In the deep ocean, all living things depend on organic material that sinks down from the sunlit surface waters. The gradual descent of dead plankton creates an ongoing shower of nutrients that sustains the entire food web on the seafloor. In this case, however, the 150-meter-thick ice wall functioned like an impenetrable steel cover. It blocked every particle of falling organic matter. Isolated from the upper ocean, subjected to freezing temperatures and immense pressure, scientists fully expected to find only desolate, lifeless terrain. But when the cameras of Sebastian switched on at the bottom, a hush fell over the entire research ship. The images that filled the screens delivered a stunning challenge to established expectations. The lens did not reveal an empty wasteland. Instead, it swept across a rough landscape alive with movement. Tiny creatures scurried across the sediment, while larger forms glided slowly through the illuminated water. The concentration of life attached to the ocean floor surpassed anything previously documented. This community was not struggling to survive in the extreme cold. It was flourishing with unexpected vitality in a place where the flow of energy had supposedly been cut off completely. The illusion of life at the extreme limits. The contradiction between an environment completely cut off from energy sources and the presence of thriving life became even more disturbing once the true structure of this ecosystem was examined closely. If the abyss beneath the George VI ice shelf had contained only microscopic organisms barely clinging to existence by hiding among sand grains, science could perhaps have explained it. But over 8 consecutive days of diving operations, the robotic equipment unveiled a multi-layered biological network of astonishing complexity. In a remarkably short time, the cameras with exceptionally high resolution recorded no fewer than 23 distinct species of large animals, not counting the dense microbial world coating the rocks and corals. The seafloor appeared like a highly organized ecological city. Forests of coral and clusters of sea anemones grew in dense groups, welcoming the icy currents. Numerous brittle stars extended their long arms to probe the terrain covered in sponges, while schools of mollusks gathered around the brilliant lights of the ROV. Most astonishing of all, this system supported even higher-level animals displaying remarkably calm behavior. Octopuses rested motionless, perfectly camouflaged against the rocks without any sign of desperate survival struggle. Around them, ice fish glided through the dim waters. These fish possess unusual blood, containing special proteins that function as antifreeze, enabling their bodies to withstand temperatures that would freeze the cells of any other creature. The existence of such a complex, stratified food chain, ranging from filter feeders and scavenging crustaceans to predators at the highest level, posed an unsolvable energy puzzle. A biological structure on this scale requires an enormous quantity of calories supplied continuously to maintain cellular metabolism. Every single octopus or ice fish swimming at 1,300 meters depth represented a massive energy-consuming machine. The thick ice layer completely stopping the rain of organic matter from the surface made the vibrant life in this kingdom extraordinarily puzzling. The environment demonstrated a profound and ancient balance, occupying every available space. This proved that its scale far exceeded what could be supported by randomly drifting fragments of material. The giants who defy all conventions. Every final attempt to fit the ecosystem beneath the George VI ice shelf into the harsh survival rules of the deep-sea environment collapsed completely in the face of undeniable visual evidence from the Sebastian vehicle cameras. The perceptual impasse arose not only from the sheer number of organisms gathered in a place totally isolated from sunlight, but also from a physical characteristic that defied all expectations: their gigantic size. In marine biology, environments severely lacking in nutrients typically drive evolutionary trends toward smaller body sizes. Maintaining a large body mass demands an expensive metabolic process that consumes oxygen and calories, which dark ocean regions usually cannot provide. Barren conditions always accompany small size, and creatures trapped under perpetual ice layers were assumed to be stunted forms with slow movements to conserve every scrap of scarce energy gathered from the mud. Yet the creatures that entered the robot exploration frame insulted this principle of energy conservation. Hidden among the cracked rocks, the artificial lights swept across the shapes of enormous sea spiders. In shallow waters or warmer oceans, sea spiders are typically small creatures blending into their surroundings. However, in this frozen abyss, their leg spans reached the size of large dinner plates. Each deliberate step across the rocky surface conveyed the confidence of a species that had completely mastered its dark domain, showing no signs of exhaustion or pressure from food scarcity. The enormous size of crustaceans in cold, deep waters, a phenomenon known as polar gigantism in the deep sea, can only arise when oxygen supplies are abundant, combined with a massive continuous intake of nutrients without interruption. Yet, the appearance of these giant sea spiders was not the peak of absurdity. The moment that left the entire crew aboard the Falkor, too, in absolute astonishment, occurred when a colossal, ghostly shadow glided across the screen, overshadowing all other creatures. It was a giant phantom jellyfish, scientifically named Stygiomedusa gigantea. Its presence at 1,300 meters depth beneath a recently broken ice formation created a surreal scene. Its bell resembled an umbrella wider than 1 meter, rhythmically contracting to propel the massive body forward. Extending from the center were 4 oral arms resembling soft silk ribbons that trailed behind for more than 10 meters. These oral arms lacked the stinging tentacles of ordinary jellyfish. Instead, they functioned as enormous traps, elegantly wrapping around and capturing prey in the darkness. A top predator reaching lengths of 33 feet could never exist in a resource-depleted environment. Its appearance provided irrefutable confirmation that the biomass of this ecosystem was sufficiently vast and rich to sustain such enormous meat-consuming engines. The jellyfish moved with calm assurance, seemingly unconcerned by the spatial and energetic paradoxes created by its very existence. It was not a stray individual swept under the ice by currents, but an integral part of a firmly established food pyramid. Along with this spatial gigantism came cruel evidence of the passage of time. The seafloor was not merely scattered with bare rocks, but covered by biological structures rising upward like ancient towers. These were enormous sponge reefs and branching coral forests. In the freezing temperatures of the deep sea, metabolic processes occur extremely slowly. The growth rate of Antarctic seafloor sponges is measured in tiny increments, often advancing only a few millimeters or at most a few centimeters after an entire year of continuous effort. As the camera scanned these towering sponge bodies, comparable in stature to ancient underwater tree trunks, the data immediately revealed an overwhelming truth. These organisms were not recent growths emerging after some recent event. To achieve their current size and complex structure, they had been growing continuously, absorbing nutrients and maintaining cellular integrity for many decades, possibly spanning centuries. They had been anchored at this location long before the A84 iceberg showed any signs of fracturing. They remained undisturbed through countless changes on the planetary surface. Their extended lifespans and colossal sizes served as biological clocks, counting back to a distant past. They proved that this dark kingdom was not a brief ecological explosion. This vibrant and ancient development completely eliminated any theory suggesting that life here was merely scavenging randomly fallen organic particles. The environment demanded a massive supply of material maintained with absolute stability over hundreds of years, without even a single day of interruption. The vertical axis vanishes, and the birth of the underground energy network. Right at the moment when the absurdity reached a limit that could no longer be reconciled, when the gigantic size and centuries-long lifespans of this biological community stood in total contradiction to an environment without light and sealed beneath 150 meters of ice, a major collapse in the framework of understanding officially occurred. The theoretical barriers were not incorrect, yet they had been applied inside a frame of reference that was entirely misdirected. The problem did not lie in the idea that the food chain beneath the George VI ice shelf had somehow bent the laws of physics to survive without energy. The fundamental issue stemmed from the entire history of oceanographic research trapping itself within a strictly vertical point of view. This colossal community had never looked upward toward the dark ice ceiling waiting for organic fragments to sink down from above. Instead, it drew energy from an entirely different direction, breaking every rule about marine snow and relying on a system that operated horizontally. Data collected from the diving equipment gradually revealed a dynamic architecture of water masses beneath the enormous ice layer. This abyss was not a stagnant pool or a hydrostatic prison. Through the darkness ran extremely gentle underwater currents that flowed continuously along the ocean floor. These currents possessed neither chaos nor the destructive power of submerged storms. They moved with steady velocity, oscillating toward and away from this specific sector of Antarctica and forming an invisible conveyor belt system. The origin of this circulation system traced back to the slow melting of glacial water masses far away. As fresh water from the George VI ice shelf gradually mixed into the ocean through geothermal processes and mechanical friction, it released vast quantities of organic matter, microscopic particles, minerals, and chemicals that had been trapped inside the continental ice for thousands of years. Rather than sinking straight down, a privilege reserved only for open waters where sunlight drives photosynthesis, this energy source was captured by the underwater current system. It traveled silently along the ocean floor, crossing many miles of absolute darkness before reaching the kingdom of ancient sponges and giant jellyfish. The creatures here did not live beneath a rain of food. They were bathing in a hidden river of nutrients. This horizontal circulation mechanism delivered material with remarkable regularity, precision, and abundance, perfectly resolving the energy paradox. This was the hidden geological engine that had sustained an enormous ecosystem completely independent of the sun. Nature had eliminated the vertical axis and given birth to a vast network of arteries, a life distribution system running parallel to the underside of the ice. The true scale of this underground circulation network was recorded not only in the present moment, but deeply etched into the layers of geological time. To verify the stability of the ecosystem, the researchers deployed gravity coring tools that penetrated the seafloor to extract long sediment columns. These mud and sand cores served as a physical chronicle, with each stacked layer representing a specific period in the past. Analysis of these core layers revealed changes in microscopic components, recording the alternation between eras of extreme cold and planetary warming stretching back thousands of years. The continuous presence of biological sediment layers directly beneath the area once covered by perpetual ice proved a more sobering reality. This horizontal current system was not a short-term weather phenomenon or random flow redirection. It was an ancient geophysical mechanism that had operated relentlessly through countless ice age cycles. The biological communities trapped beneath the ice shell for tens of thousands of years had never perished during the most severe cold periods because this hidden conveyor belt had never stopped delivering food. The discovery of this horizontal energy axis completely shattered the concept of the limits of life. It proved that regions locked under permanent ice were not barriers preventing survival. They functioned instead as protective domes, sheltering a vast underground ecological network operating with far greater independence and stability than the chaotic world above. Beyond Earth, the map of life is rewritten. The revelation of this horizontal biological circulation network beneath Antarctica did not stop at establishing a new rule for deep ocean ecosystems. It created a perceptual shockwave that extended far beyond the atmosphere, racing straight into the infinite expanse of space and rewriting every boundary in the search for extraterrestrial life. For many decades of the space age, astronomical models remained bound by the prejudice of a habitable zone, the region where a planet sits at the right distance from its parent star to maintain liquid water and allow sunlight to trigger photosynthetic reactions. This prejudice had caused distant worlds covered in perpetual ice shells to be classified as dead lands, silent tombs drifting through the cold solar system. Europa, one of the largest moons of Jupiter, stands as the clearest embodiment of the deadlock in old astronomical theories. Data from satellites and space probes have shown that beneath the cracked surface of Europa lies an enormous saltwater ocean containing more than twice the total volume of liquid water found on Earth. The heat maintaining this ocean does not come from the sun. It arises from continuous gravitational friction as the massive bulk of Jupiter tears and compresses the moon. Yet all hopes for complex life here have always crashed against an undeniable physical wall. The ice shell encasing Europa's ocean may reach thicknesses of 100 kilometers. An ice barrier of that scale transforms the subsurface ocean into an eternal dark prison. Scientists have long carried deep skepticism, questioning whether life could emerge and evolve through complex stages when sunlight is completely eliminated and no organic material can fall from an atmosphere. But now, the unveiling of a kingdom of giant organisms at 1,300 meters depth beneath the Antarctic ice shelf has delivered a decisive blow to that skepticism. This discovery serves as a perfect test model right here on Earth. It proves that the survival limits humans have drawn are meaningless against the power of nature. If an ecosystem containing 10-meter-long predators and century-old sponge reefs can flourish beneath the Antarctic ice solely through a system of underwater currents, transporting nutrients horizontally, then the frozen ocean structure of Europa is no longer a far-fetched hypothesis. It becomes a scenario of extremely high possibility. The physical barriers have been completely reversed in meaning. The 100-kilometer-thick ice shell of Europa, or the frozen crusts of Enceladus around Saturn and Ganymede, are no longer defined as deadly lids. Instead, they function as supreme protective shields. On the surface, outer space bombards relentlessly with lethal radiation and high-energy particle streams that destroy every organic molecule. But deep beneath that icy shield lies a stable hydrostatic environment maintained at constant temperature forever, never disturbed by storms, climate shifts, or meteorite impacts on the surface. Perpetual darkness reigns, and gravitational forces generate heat at the ocean floor, triggering chemical reactions that release material. From there, conveyor belt-style underwater currents similar to those in Antarctica would quietly transport nutrient particles across the entire world. The entire biological map of the universe must now be redrawn. Icy moons, once regarded as barren and inhospitable, now reveal enormous potential as the largest biological incubators in the solar system. Complex life may not require a sunny sky or green continents. There exists a strong possibility that in the silent darkness stretching across billions of years, hidden from the gaze of space telescopes, vast underground kingdoms continue to maintain peaceful, harmonious, and bustling existence. They operate independently of any stellar energy sources, relying entirely on networks of circulating currents beneath the planetary shell. What we once considered an exception beneath Antarctica may in fact represent the most common and sustainable mode of survival throughout the vast universe. Deadly light and the collapsing network. The grand expansion of awareness to cosmic scales was suddenly wrenched back to Earth. It collided forcefully with a harsh and alarming reality at the precise location of Iceberg A84. The moment when the colossal ice shelf, comparable in size to the city of Chicago, detached from the Antarctic continent, had been celebrated as a perfect accident. It created a rare time window, allowing humans to peer into a hidden world. However, the very instant this great truth was exposed, also inadvertently activated a countdown clock leading to collapse. Observing an ancient ecosystem had never been a harmless act. The subsurface marine environment had maintained its complex structure based on absolute isolation. Every biological component, current, and temperature had been perfectly refined through thousands of years of enclosure. Now that protective shield had vanished completely. The removal of the 150-meter thick ice cover was not a liberation. It represented an invasion by foreign elements. Sunlight, the sacred energy regarded as the foundation and nurturer of life across the entire planetary surface, became a destructive agent when it plunged directly into this seafloor region. The once peaceful dark silence that served as the essential condition for the survival of sea spiders, icefish, and giant sponges now suffered penetration by blinding photons of light. The arrival of illumination triggered a chain of irreversible physical reactions. Temperatures in the freezing water mass began absorbing heat from the open environment, disrupting the hydrostatic structure preserved through entire ice ages. More critically, the surface temperature change immediately interfered with fluid dynamics. It disturbed the direction and velocity of the horizontal underwater currents, the sole life-sustaining conveyor belt distributing food throughout this entire kingdom. The ecosystem beneath the George VI ice shelf is undergoing powerful transformation day by day. The giant creatures that once lived peacefully in an extremely slow time cycle now face an environmental shock delivered with violent speed. The researchers aboard the Falkor, too, were no longer merely explorers. They had become unwilling final witnesses to a kingdom in the process of transitioning into an irreversible state. Recognizing the urgency, they shifted into a frantic race against time. They repeatedly deployed diving equipment to extract sediment cores, collect water samples, and gather biological specimens. All data gathered during these brief days may represent the only archive of an intact ecological network before it becomes fully assimilated by structural fractures and the altered food chains of the open ocean. Once the frozen structure disappears, this biological system can never return to its original balance. The breakup of Iceberg. A84 is not an isolated geological event. It serves as a symptom of a far larger fracture tearing apart the icy shields across the planet due to rising global temperatures. The Antarctic Peninsula is witnessing continuously accelerating ice loss. Ice shelves are collapsing with increasing frequency. Each massive iceberg that breaks away and drifts elsewhere means another ecosystem sealed for thousands of years is stripped bare and exposed to the open ocean environment. This abyss never waited for humans to arrive for enlightenment or salvation. The highest probability is that the planet's greatest survival networks have been quietly operating beneath frozen continents, and the most devastating threat to them comes precisely at the moment when their protective shells are shattered. The horrifying truth lies not only in the fact that we are about to lose unnamed underwater wonders, it lies also in the realization that every new discovery about life beneath the ice may simultaneously serve as an obituary for its extinction.